Right. Good morning, all, and welcome to the another lecture of 8085. We were working on the interfacing part of 8085 microprocessor. Today is a big day because we are heading towards the 100th video of my YouTube channel, and this is a great occasion for me and a great privilege on behalf of the students that they have motivated me to do this. And by this, I am very thank you to all those who have directly or indirectly excited me, ignited me to do this. And I wish that all the videos which I shared on my YouTube channel are going to be helpful for the students of electronics. So let us begin for the today's lecture. And today we are going to study again. We will be continuing the input and output organization of the 8085 devices, input and output devices, as well as the memory. So how they are going to be interfaced, that is what we need to discuss today. So let me share my screen. On that we will uh, just will just say, yeah, we'll just repeat what we have studied yesterday. So yeah, we have started with this. We have started with this. Okay, so is it working? Yeah. So today we are going to continue with this input and output organization of 8085 part 2. Yesterday what we have studied, we'll be continuing that. Just for a moment, I am going to repeat what we have studied in the last class. So we were studying about the input and output organizations, right? So input and output organizations, which includes the input and output devices which are being connected to the microprocessor, right? So now the first one is how we are going to access the input output devices, right? So we have studied this. We are just going to access how the input output devices are connected to the 8085 via the signals, right? So these are some of the parameters, some of the points which are very essential for accessing the input output devices. And those are, the first one is that we can connect many of the input output devices to the processor via a bus only. So we are connecting this through the bus, right? So input output devices may be connected, multiple input output devices may be connected to the processor and the memory via bus. Bus consists of three sets of lines to carry the address, to carry the data, and the control signals, right? So we are having three sets of buses that we have studied yesterday. Each input output device is assigned with a unique address. So one particular input output device is having a particular unique address through which we are going to communicate to the 8085. To access an input output device, the processor places the address, the unique address or unique code of that particular input output device on the address lines. Right now, as soon as you put that address, the device recognizes the address and responds to the control signals. As I told you in the last class, that whenever I call a student while teaching, that particular student has its own name, unique name. So if I call his name, then he is going to respond. Then only he is going to respond, and the other devices will not respond. So the same is over here. The device recognizes the address and responds to the control signals. Now this is the structure. This is the block level diagram, how it look like. So if you are able to see this screen, so these are some blocks. So the processor is right over here, and this is being connected to the input output devices from 1 to n number of input output devices which are being connected. And here it is, somewhere it is a memory, and those are all are connected through the bus. That bus is 8-bit wires, 8-bit lines, right, through which the processor is going to communicate on this. Along with this, it is having a address line also. So the address lines uh, puts the address of that particular input output device, by the processor puts that particular address on that address lines, and the input output device recognizes the signal that the processor wants to communicate with that particular input output device. So this was the simplest form of understanding how the input, how to access the input output devices. Now there are many more parameters which are connected with that. The first one is input output devices and memory may share the same address. If it is sharing, then uh, yes. So if it is sharing the same address, then what type of a programming we require on that? So yeah, we are having a memory mapped input output, means the memory and input output devices are going to share the same address lines, right? With that, and the machine cycles which are being used for the memory, the same machine cycles are being used for the input output device, and it requires the simpler software. So this is one type how you are going to use the same address space for the input output devices. If we are not expecting to use the same input output address line, then what are the other things that we require along with that? If it is so, then what happens? A special instruction to transfer data to and from input output devices are required, right? If you are not using the same address line, if you are not using the same address lines, then input output devices may have to deal with the fewer address lines. So कुछ दो चार जो रहेंगे उसके हिसाब से address lines के हिसाब से that can be used to input output devices. The input output address lines need not be physically separate from the memory address line. ये जरूरी नहीं है, क्योंकि हम लोग दो बार उसको address lines अगर देते हैं तो वो हमारा माइक्रो प्रोसेसर का स्ट्रक्चर और किट वो बढ़ जाता है, सर्किटरी बढ़ जाती है. इसके वजह से सेम किट भी सेम एड्रेस बस भी आप लोग यूज कर सकते हो. There is not a compulsion that we are going to have a separate address lines. And in fact जो है हमारा जो अभी practically 8085 यूज कर रहे हैं उसमें they are sharing the same address lines, just control signals जो होते हैं वो थोड़े से वेरी करके हम लोग उसको यूज कर सकते हैं. So that is there. Then again, how we are going to use those? So these input output devices is connected to the bus using a input output interface circuit. So these input output interface circuits are responsible for communicating with input output devices and the microprocessor. Now this includes these input output say interface circuit includes address decoder, control circuit, data register, and the status register as well. So we are having this input output interface circuit. They are namely four: address decoder, control circuit, data register, and status register too. Right. So the address decoder, what it is going to do, it is going to decode the address of that particular input output device, whereas the data register is going to hold the data, and the status register holds the information necessary for the operation of input output device, whether it is going to read, whether it is going to write in the device. That is what is being taken care of by the status register. And lastly, the control unit. That control unit, okay, the data and status registers are connected to the data lines and having the unique addresses. Input output interface circuit coordinates with the input output transfers. Yeah, so this is the block level diagram where we are able to see that there are four blocks, mainly three blocks: address decoder, control circuits, and data and status registers, right? So these registers keep the data as well as the status of the lines that we are having. This address decoder is going to decode only the address of that particular input output device, and these are the input devices, and this is going to the microprocessor, right? So these are again the same some parameters. Then the speed or the rate of data transfer from the input output devices must be slower than the speed of the processor, right? So the rate of flow of the rate at which the data is to be transferred from or to the microprocessor must be smaller than the speed of the processor, which creates the need for the synchronization data transfer between them, right? So if it is not there, the speed is not there, the speed is same, then there might not be the synchronization. Synchronization is a very important factor while transferring the data or communicating the data, right? So they are having these three types of say schemes of transfer of data. One is called as the program controlled input output scheme in which the processor repeatedly monitors the status flag to achieve the necessary synchronization, right? So the processor takes care of that to check whether check the status flag, whether the input output devices are communicating properly or not, right? So that is one that is called as program control input output. And the another way of program control input output is the processor polls the input output devices. So it gives us a simultaneous signal to the input output devices. And there are two more mechanisms which we are going to study from today. The two other mechanisms which are also included along with the program control input output is the interrupt, and the next one is the direct memory access, that is DMA control, right? So interrupts, what are supposed to be the interrupts? What are interrupts? Interrupt means when I'm teaching something, somebody is calling me. That is called as a interrupt. Somebody wants me uh, uh, for their say work. So what they will do, they will call me. So what is that? That is those peoples are interrupting my class, right? So when I'm teaching, so it is going to interrupt that. So that particular situation is called as the interrupts. Now let us study in depth what are interrupts. So interrupts is actually in a what happens is in a program control input output, when the processor continuously monitors the status of the device, it does not perform any task. अगर उसको यही काम दे दिया है कि मेरे को सिर्फ उसको चेक ही करते रहना है, तो वो बाकी के दूसरे काम नहीं कर पाएगा, right? For example, if principal sir is busy and they have asked me कि मुझे थोड़ा सा चेक करते रहना कि whenever I am free I can call you or we can talk on some topic, right? So what I will do, I will go on checking him every 15 or 20 minutes whether he is free or not. Every 15 minutes I will go on checking on that. So what I'll do, I will do nothing in that particular time slots when I'm going to check my principal sir whether he's free or not, right? I will do no other job. So the same is situation for the say the processor. If processor goes on checking those input output devices, he won't do anything on that. So what he will do, he will just go on checking that. The processor is going to check. So because of that only the facility of interrupts have come into play. So an alternate approach would be for the input output device to alert the processor when it becomes free, right? Or when it becomes ready. So principal sir might give me a call, right? Now I am free, you can come to talk, right? So that is the main job of the input output device, that to tell whether he is free or not. The same is there. So that can be done uh, the by using the input output devices alerts. Now, what they do, so by sending a hardware signal called an interrupt to the processor, right? They will call me, which will interrupt my whatever I'm doing. So I'm doing, the processor is doing some program, and in between that particular program, there is some interrupt, right? So that particular signal is called as an interrupt. At least now, as soon as the processor will receive this call, that is the interrupt from that, so at least one of the bus control lines called an interrupt request line is sorry, for this signal, one of the lines are being डेडिकेटेड फॉर दिस पर्पस, कि वो सिर्फ अपना सिग्नल लेने के लिए आएगा, इंटरप्ट आया है आया है आया है या नहीं. So one of the data lines or the control lines, which are called as the interrupt request line, is dedicated for this purpose. And the processor can perform other useful tasks while it is waiting for the device to be ready. तो अब जब तक के वो पूरी तरीके से आउटपुट इनपुट आउटपुट डिवाइस तैयार नहीं हो जाता, तब तक के प्रोसेसर के पास टाइम है कि वो दूसरे काम कर पाए. सो इट विल complete its work which is in its hand. So that is the main use of that interrupts, right? So how the actual the interrupts look like? So as I told you that the processor was performing this program one, right? So this is a main program which it is going to it was performing. And in between that, what happens? We'll have a interrupt sub service routine. We call this as interrupt service routine, or it is just similar to the subroutine that we are using. So it is another program, but in subroutine, what happens? We are doing a task which is related to the main program, but in interrupt service routine, it is a different task, it is a different use of the processor, right? So as soon as the signal is received by the processor, so at this location, that is at this stage, that is I, the processor will acknowledge the interrupt, and as soon as the processor acknowledges the interrupt and gives the control of data lines and address lines to the interrupt service subroutine, all the data is the routine is executed in response to an interrupt request, and this is called as interrupt service routine, right? That is as good as some other program which is written outside the main program. So when an interrupt occurs, control must be transferred to the interrupt service routine, right? So the control signals of data bus address lines are to be handed over to this interrupt service subroutine, and they will take care of. अब जब ऐसा सब रूटीन हम लोग कॉल करते हैं मेन प्रोग्राम में, तो एक्चुअली व्हाट हैपेंस? Actually, whatever the data is already there in execution, those data is being stored somewhere for a temporary purpose up till this subroutine completes its own task, right? So ये होता है. So before transferring control to the current contents of the PC, that is I plus one, must be saved. पीसी बोले तो प्रोग्राम काउंटर का जो एड्रेस है, वो कहीं तो भी हमको सेव करना पड़ता है, एंड दैट इज सेव्ड इन अ नोन लोकेशन, राइट? क्योंकि जब ये प्रोग्राम कंप्लीट करके जब वापस मेन प्रोग्राम पर आएगा, तो ये प्रोग्राम फिर से हम लोग एग्जीक्यूट कर पाएंगे, राइट? So this will enable to return from the interrupt instruction to resume execution at I plus one stage. सो आई पर हमारा एक्नॉलेजमेंट गया, हमने उसको इंटरप्ट सर्विस रूटीन को सबका सब कंट्रोल दे दिया, और उसने वो पूरा प्रोग्राम, ये जो आपको दिख रहा है यहाँ पर, ये पूरा प्रोग्राम उसने रन किया, और ये रन करने के बाद लास्ट में हमारा जैसे रिटर्न इंस्ट्रक्शन रहता है, वैसा ही इंस्ट्रक्शन यहाँ पे रहेगा, और इट विल रिटर्न टू द मेन प्रोग्राम, right? So the return address or the contents of PC are usually stored in processor stack. हम लोगों ने उसके लिए स्टैक पॉइंटर रखा हुआ है डेडिकेटेड, जिस पर हमारा वो पूरा डेटा ऑलरेडी सेव हो जाता है. सो पुश एंड पॉप जो हम लोग करते हैं, वैसा ये पुश और पॉप कर लेगा. सो दिस इज इंटरप्ट्स. So this is how the interrupts are going to work, and treatment of an interrupt service subroutine is very similar to that of a subroutine. मैंने बताया अभी कि हम लोग एक छोटा सा प्रोग्राम लिखते हैं which we call in the main program. So ये interrupt service routine और subroutine जो हम लोग लिखते हैं, they both are almost same. They are not सेम एक्चुअली, बट दे आर ऑलमोस्ट सेम, क्योंकि वहां पर भी वो कॉल करता है, यहाँ पे ये इंटरप्ट के वजह से वो वाले प्रोग्राम में वो चले जाता है. और क्या क्या उसमें डिफरेंसेस है, वो है a subroutine performs a task that is required by the calling program. वो प्रोग्राम से रिलेटेड वाला एक प्रोग्राम है छोटा सा, राइट? एंड दैट इज बीइंग कॉल्ड इन द मेन प्रोग्राम. Whereas the interrupt subroutine may not have anything in common with the program it interrupts, right? So जो प्रोग्राम वो कंटिन्यू कर रहा था, उससे और उसका कोई रिलेशन नहीं हो सकता है, वो समथिंग दैट इज समथिंग डिफरेंट विच इट वांट्स टू डू. दैट इज द इनपुट आउटपुट डिवाइस, right? So interrupt subroutine and program that it interrupts may belong to different users. ये दोनों भी अलग अलग users को belong कर सकते हैं. These are some of the differences between, say, interrupt service routine and the subroutine that we use. So as a result, before branching the interrupt service routine, not only the program counter, but other information such as condition of the code, flags, and processors registers used by both the interrupt program and the interrupt subroutines must be stored. तो पूरा का पूरा डेटा जो ऑलरेडी प्रोग्राम में था, ये पूरा का पूरा डेटा कहीं तो भी सेव हो जाना चाहिए, so that as soon as ये इंटरप्ट सर्विस रूटीन जैसे ही खत्म हो जाएगा, तो हमारा पुराना डेटा प्रोग्राम का जो हमारा रिक्वायर्ड डेटा था दैट is available for the program for the processing. Now this will enable the interrupt program to resume execution upon return from the interrupt subroutine, right? So this is the main job of the interrupts, right? So saving and restoring of information can be done automatically by the processor or explicitly by the program instruction. या तो ये खुद से प्रोसेसर खुद ही कर लेगा, जैसे इंटरप्ट दिया है तो इंटरप्ट ने उसने ले लेना चाहिए, या फिर क्या करेगा कि हमारे को जो प्रोग्रामर जो प्रोग्राम लिखने वाला है उस प्रोग्राम में हम लोगों को ऐसा कुछ तो भी पहले से डालना पड़ेगा, सो दैट ऑल द डेटा शुड बी ट्रांसफर्ड or stored for temporary purpose up till the interrupt service routine is executing its instruction. Now, saving and restoring register involves memory transfer, increases the total execution time, then increases the delay between the time or an interrupt request is received and the start of execution of interrupt service routine. This delay is called as interrupt latency. So first thing is the input output device is going to send the input output device is going to send a signal to the processor that the input output device wants to interrupt, right? The processor will first complete all its steps to store that data, and then it will send a signal that the processor is ready to give you all the controls of data and address line. Now, the time between these things, as the interrupt is received and the signal is given, interrupt acknowledgement is given, this particular time lag is called as the interrupt latency, interrupt delay, right? So that is all that. In order to reduce this interrupt latency, most processors save only the minimal amount of information. Now, which is required, that much of amount is to be stored. Otherwise, all the information are retained as it is. So the minimal amount of information includes the program counter and the processor status flag. यही दो important चीजें हैं जो हम लोगों को स्टोर करनी है, बाकी का कोई जरूरत नहीं. Any additional information that must be saved must be saved explicitly by the program instruction at the beginning of the interrupt service routine. And if else, in the main program, there are some more issues which a programmer wants to store. So what he will do, he will write that storage in the interrupt subroutine itself, so that the main data can be retained back when the main program starts again. So this is for the interrupts. And when a processor receives an interrupt request, it must branch to the interrupt service routine. जैसे ही प्रोसेसर ने interrupt request आई, वैसे ही उसने interrupt service routine को अपना डेटा देना चाहिए. It must also inform the device that it has recognized the interrupt request. I have told you that as soon as it will receive the interrupt request, he has to send a interrupt acknowledge. So interrupt acknowledge उसको send करना है कि हाँ, I have acknowledged your interrupt. So this can be accomplished in two ways. Some processors have an explicit interrupt acknowledge control signal for this purpose. So it will send a high signal on this interrupt acknowledge, or some other processors take the data transfer takes place between the device and processors can be used to inform the device, right? So the data transfer takes place between the device and the processor can be used to inform the device. As soon as हमारा interrupt request आ गया, ऑटोमेटिकली हमारा डेटा ट्रांसफर शुरू हो गया, तो उसी में हम लोग वो बोलेंगे कि उसी में उसने वो सिग्नल भेज दिया कि it has acknowledged the interrupt, right? So these are the two ways. Either it has to send the interrupt acknowledge and then start to transfer, or in the other case, as soon as it receives the interrupt request, it will start the data to transfer. Right. So interrupt execution of a program and may alter the intended sequence of events. So as soon as interrupt request आती है, तो interrupt जो execution of program जो शुरू था, they may alter the intended sequence of the events. Like sometimes such alterations may be undesirable and must be allowed. अभी कुछ चीजें ऐसी हैं जो हमारे को चाहिए भी नहीं, तो भी हमारे को उसको अलाउ करना पड़ता है. For example, the processor may not want to be interrupted by the same device while executing its interrupt service route. दिस इज वेरी फंडामेंटल थिंग. जब एक एक इनपुट आउटपुट डिवाइस ऑलरेडी वो इंटरप्ट सर्विस रूटीन चल रही है उस इनपुट आउटपुट डिवाइसेस की, तो वो फिर से अगर इंटरप्ट रिक्वेस्ट भेजता है तो ये हमारे को अलाउड नहीं है, राइट? सो दिस इज वेरी अनडिजायरेबल. So we don't want that. And processors generally provide the ability to enable and disable such interruptions as desired. So one simple way is to provide machine instructions such as interrupt enable and interrupt disable for this purpose. So we have say machine instructions for those कि हम लोग कुछ समय के लिए वो interrupt enable and interrupt disable हम लोग कर सकते हैं. So as soon as one of the input devices is working on this interrupt service routine, so we will disable the interrupt at that moment, right? So that the other interrupt will not be received by the processor. So to avoid interruption by the same device during the execution of an interrupt subroutine, we have to avoid this interruption and by doing interrupt disable for this purpose. So the first instruction of an interrupt service routine can be interrupt disable. तो जैसे हम लोग interrupt service रूटीन में जाते हैं, द मेन प्रोग्राम से जाते हैं, तो ऑटोमेटिकली क्या होना चाहिए, उसने सबसे पहला इंस्ट्रक्शन इंटरप्ट डिसेबल का रखना चाहिए ताकि दूसरा इंटरप्ट उसको तब तक के ना मिले, और जब लास्ट में आए तो उसको इंटरप्ट एनेबल करके फिर वापस मेन प्रोग्राम में आना. So this is one, and in the last instruction of an interrupt routine can be interrupt enable. So this is something which is for the interrupts. I guess the time is running up. Only 3 or 4 minutes are there. So multiple input output devices. This we will continue in the next class. These are some of the questions. How does the processor know which device has generated an interrupt? These are some questions that we will be continuing in the next class. So today we have studied about the interrupts, how the interrupts are going to work, and this is the case for that. So yeah, so today we have continued with this. Let us again just recall it what we have studied. The in program control input output, when the processor continuously monitors, this is the reason why we are requiring interrupts. So an alternate approach would be to alert the processor when it becomes ready. So this is done by sending a hardware signal by the interrupt to the processor, and at least one of the bus control lines of an interrupt request line, which is called as an interrupt request line, is dedicated for this particular purpose of sending and receiving the interrupt data. Now the processor can perform other useful tasks while it is waiting for the device to be ready. And yeah, this is how it works. So the main program, if you are able to see, is working over there, and the interrupt subroutine is over there. So at this position, that is I, the main program has given the acknowledgement to the interrupt service routine, which implies that it has given all the controls to this interrupt subroutine. It performs these all program, and then it returns back to I plus one. And before doing that, the data is to be stored somewhere for such as program counter data and the other registers which are being used by this interrupt service routine first, and then only it is sending the signal to that interrupt service subroutine. So these are some of the parameters, some more parameters. This is the difference between interrupt service routine and the subroutine that we use. Then yeah, saving and storing the data of for information in some way. The data is to be stored by the programmer, or say the program itself is going to store that data. For programmer wants, then yeah, so this is the last way. So this is how the interrupt request in service can be used. So there are two signals, interrupt enable and interrupt disable, which can be used for this purpose. So within that range that the program is performing the interrupt service routine, the interrupt disable and interrupt enable can be used in the interrupt subroutine itself, right? So these are some of the things which were essential for that. Now we'll study this in the next class, uh, in the coming class, hopefully tomorrow, the Saturday. So I guess for today it is enough. And if you have any queries, you can ask me on that. Okay. So do you have any questions regarding this, or we'll end the class? Okay. Thank you. So I guess you have understood what I have taught you today in this class. So we were working on interfacing and how the interrupts work. That is what we have said. We have seen in in this class. So thank you very much for viewing this video, and go through my YouTube channel for more videos. And please like those videos and share it if somebody wants that. So thank you very much for joining in this lecture. Have a nice time. Stay safe, stay home, take care. See you soon. Good day. Bye.